The fifth day of the fourth special session of the 21st Congress will now come to order. May we all rise for a moment of silent prayer. Roll call, Chief Clerk.
Senator Aritas, Senator Christian, Senator Figuer, Senator Colant, Floor Leader Harper, Senator Coleman, Vice Speaker Moses, Senator Nath, Senator Pollack, Senator Perman, Senator Romulo, Senator Rusmal, Senator Wiley, Speaker Simona.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all the 14 members are present.
We have a full house. We have a quorum to transact business this morning. Floor Leader Harper, reading of the journal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to you, all honorable members, staff, and all those who are observing our session this morning. Again, I move to dispense with the reading of the journal.
It's been moved and seconded that we dispense with the reading of the journal. Those in favor say yes. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We now dispense with the reading of the journal. Next item, Chief Clerk.
Item 5, Mr. Speaker, Presidential Communications. There are none.
That's understandable. Next item.
Item 6, Jefferson Supreme Court Communications. None.
Also understandable. Next item.
Item 7, Member Communications. We have number 21-11.
Okay, assign that, Chief Clerk. Next item.
Item 8, Departmental Communications. None, Mr. Speaker.
That's not understandable. Next item.
Item 9, Agency or Governmental Authority Communications. We have number 21-40.
Assign that. Chief Clerk, next item.
Item 10, State Communications. None. Item 11, State Supreme Court Communications. Also none. Item 12, Municipal or Town Communications. None. Item 13, Foreign Government Communications. None, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, order of the day. Item 14.
Item 14, Standing Committee Reports. We have an awaiting list number 21-21 for Standing Committee Reports.
Short recess. Subject to the call of the chair. Congress is back in session. We will wait for the awaiting list. They're still preparing it, so if there's no objection, we go down to the next item.
Item 15, Mr. Speaker, Special Committee Reports. There are none.
Okay, next item.
Item 16, Assignment of Measures and Communications. We have a referral sheet number 21-54.
Okay, take a look at that, Chairman and members, for your planning purposes. Next item.
Item 17, unfinished business, none, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Next item is bill calendar. First bill.
Mr. Speaker, the first bill is CP number 2021-150 for second reading. CB number 21-150 is a bill for an act to further amend Public Law number 19-124 as amended by Public Laws numbers 19-133, 19-140, 19-150, 20-5, 20-15, 20-33, 20-48, 20-63, 20-71, 20-156, 20-175, 21-22, and 21-52 by amending Section 5 thereof to change the use of certain funds previously appropriated therein to fund priority infrastructure projects and other programs in the state of Chuuk and for other purposes.
Chairman Forget.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Congress passes Congress Bill 21-150 on second and final reading.
It's been moved and seconded that Congress pass on second and final reading CP number 21-150. Discussion.
Sorry,
Mr. Speaker,
Sorry,
Senator Christian.
Mr. Speaker, as the newest member of Congress, I would like to plead with the members to allow me to venture a motion to defer all second reading bills to tomorrow's calendar, as I am still struggling to figure out how to do this thing.
Short recess.
So
Speaker,
moved,
the chair.
Mr. Speaker. Speaker.
Congress is back in session. There's a motion to defer. Can you please restate the motion, Senator
Yes,
Christian?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move that except for Congress Bill 21-163 and 21-168, all the bills on today's bill calendar for second reading be deferred to tomorrow's calendar.
It's been moved and seconded that except for CP 21-163 and 21-168, all the other bills for second and final reading be deferred to tomorrow's session. Those are 21-150, 21-155, 21-156, 21-157, 21-160, 21-161, 21-162, 21-166, 21-167, 21-164, and 21-165. Those in favor of that motion say yes. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Those bills are deferred except for 163 and 168. So first bill,
Mr. Speaker, we have CB number 21-163 for second reading. CB number 21-163 is a bill for an act to further amend Chapter 6 of Title 55 of the Code of the Federated States of Micronesia as annotated, as amended by adding a new section 609A for the purpose of establishing a temporary tourism sector mitigation relief fund to alleviate some of the economic loss felt by the tourism industry during the coronavirus epidemic and for other purposes.
Chairman Figueroa.
Move for the passage of the bill on second and final reading.
It's been moved and seconded that Congress pass on second and final reading CP number 21-163. Discussion. Chairman Ursula.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I believe there is a very floor amendments that I wish to make on the bill. I would request that the Chief Clerk please can read that amendment.
Go ahead, Chief Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, we have a floor amendment to CB number 21-163 proposed by Senator Ursamal. Item 1 of this amendment on page 2, line 2, insert a new subsection 4 to read as follows. The distributions from the fund shall be managed and administered by a committee named by the President, comprising representatives of the Departments of Resources and Development, Finance, Justice, and Environment, Climate Change, and Emergency Management. The committee shall report quarterly to Congress on the status of the fund and distributions therefrom. Item 2 of this amendment, the subsequent subsections shall be renumbered accordingly.
Make your motion.
So move, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the other floor amendment to CB 21-163 by Senator Ursula be adopted. Floor Leader Hubbard.
Move to suspend any rule that may impede our action on the said amendment.
Any second? It's been moved and seconded that the relevant rules, specifically the rules prohibiting substantive amendments on second and final reading, be suspended. There is no objection. Okay, let's vote. Those in favor say yes. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Those relevant rules are now suspended. Discussion on the offered amendments. Short
Sorry,
recess.
Mr. Speaker.
Council Chair.
Yeah,
Okay. Congress is back in session. We're still on the offer for amendment to CB 21-163. Senator Chairman Chairman Roosevelt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Based on the discussion during recess, I move that the proposed amendment be deferred to tomorrow.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. The effort for amendment to CB 21-163 be deferred to tomorrow. Those in favor of that motion say yes. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Said amendment and the bill itself are deferred to tomorrow's session. Next bill.
Point of privilege, Mr. Speaker.
State your point, Vice Chairman Palik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to you and distinguished members. I beg the indulgence of Congress to acknowledge and to recognize an individual who is observing our session this morning. He was by profession an attorney and worked at the state government for several years. Currently is working with our Office of Overseas Development Assistance, ODA. May I introduce Mr. Lepar George and ask that we give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Palik, for introducing that young gentleman. He's always welcome to observe our session. Any other point of privilege? If none, Chief Clerk, next bill.
Mr. Speaker, we have CP number 21-168 for second reading. CP number 21-168 is a bill for an act to amend sections 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, and 12 of Public Law number 21-42 as amended by Public Laws numbers 21-55 and 21-77 to appropriate $499,782 from the General Fund of the Federated States of Micronesia in order to prioritize the nation's interest in light of the coronavirus epidemic for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2020, from the operations of the National Government of the Federated States of Micronesia, Office of the National Public Auditor, agencies of the national government, special programs, grants, subsidies, and contributions, and to change the allotee of certain funds and for other purposes.
Chairman Figueroa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move for the passage of Congress Bill number 21-168 on second and final reading.
It's been second. Any second? It's moved and seconded that Congress pass on second and final reading CP number 21-168. Discussion. Chairman Figueroa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a floor amendment that I wish to offer at this time, and I cannot find my copy, but the floor amendment, it's been duplicated, distributed, and been read several times by members, and it's merely to correct some figures in the bill. So I move that we dispense with the reading of the proposed floor amendment, and I so move for its adoption.
It's been moved and seconded that the offer floor amendment to CP 21-168 offered by Chairman Figueroa be adopted. Because of its length, we will dispense with its reading, and the relevant rules are still suspended, specifically the rules prohibiting substantive amendments on second and final reading. So discussion on the offered amendments. Any discussion?
Short recess, Mr. Speaker.
Short recess, subject to call of the chair.
original
Congress is back in session. We're still discussing the offered floor amendment to CB 21-168. Any further discussion on the offered amendment?
Question.
Question's been called for. If there's no objection, debate is closed. So let's vote. Those in favor of adoption of the offered floor amendment to CB 21-168, say yes. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The offered floor amendment to CB 21-168 by Chairman Figueroa is adopted. We now have CD1. Any further discussion on the CD1? If none, there's no objection. Debate is closed. So let's vote by roll call of delegations. Chief Clerk.
State of Job, Chairman Aritos. State of Bombay, Chairman Perman. State of Kushai, Chairman Wali. State of Yap, Chairman Ursmal. Chairman Ursmal. Mr. Speaker, all the 4 states voted in favor.
For that reason, CP number 21-168 CD1 has passed Congress on second and final reading. Next bill.
Point of privilege, Mr. Speaker.
State your point, Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on a point of privilege to introduce reluctantly a constituent of yours, Mr. Speaker, for recognition, who is a traditional chief from the island of the named Arthur Ajin. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Floor Leader Harper, for introducing that someone of yours. Any other point of privilege? If none, next bill.
There are none, Mr. Speaker.
Short recess up to the call of the chair. Congress is back in session. We're still on the bill calendar. Chairman Romulo.
Motion to recess.
Short recess, subject to call of the chair. Congress is back in session. Chairman Romulo.
Motion to pass the state bill on the
Do we
first
try and
reading.
place?
Withdraw and place CP number 151 on the raised calendar.
It's been moved and seconded that CB 21-151 be withdrawn from committee and placed on the bill calendar for first reading action. Any relevant rules?
I presume relevant rules are still suspended.
Okay, if there's no objection, the relevant rules are still suspended. Okay, so let's vote. Those in favor of adoption of the motion, say yes. Votes no. Motion carried. CB number 21-151 is withdrawn from committee and placed on the bill calendar for action. Read the title.
Mr. Speaker, CB number 21-151 is a bill for an act to further amend Public Law number 21-19 as amended by Public Laws numbers 21-39 and 21-74 by amending sections 5, 6, and 9 thereof in order to provide allowances to eligible delegates to the Constitutional Convention who were members of the pre-convention committee for their attendance at meetings of that committee, to increase the number of days the convention can be extended, and for other purposes.
Hey, Chairman Romulo.
Move for passage of the state bill on the first reading.
It's been moved and seconded that Congress pass on first reading CP number 21-151. Discussion. Any discussion?
Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Ursumo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With all due respect to all my friends on the Constitutional Convention, this bill proposing to give compensation for those who were involved in the pre-convention and also to do other things, compensatory activities, bothers me, including any extension of the convention, the CONCON. This is a problem that I think we have, is when we set schedule, then we come back and amend to extend. If I'm given a time frame to complete a task, I must complete the task within the given period to me. Only I can understand the problem now is with this coronavirus, but I don't know why it should be an excuse. Yeah, if to be with our families, yeah, that's true too. But it's just the way that we do things, extend period of times to do works, is what is bothering me. You know, when we are told to pay loans a certain time, you have to pay. And that's probably the difference between private and government. When these people were picked to, or were, to do the pre-con, they know there was not going to be any compensation. But they were on TA, so they got money. Maybe you should amend the administrative manual to give me back my 7 days in YAP, to and from session, which I happily agreed to delete it out. The government is not a bank to give us money all the time. Sometimes we need to sacrifice. Thank you.
Speaker,
Thank you, Chairman Ursangol. Trina, if you have any concerns you want to address through floor amendments, you can prepare one for tomorrow. Okay,
Thank you
Vice Chairman Balik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have one simple question, and that is, how many of these delegates fall under this category that if passed, and how much are we estimating to pay?
It will apply to all those national and state, all
we-
those not employed by
You
the
have a
national
figure?
and state. And the amount, I don't know, but as I mentioned, it must be within their budget. I don't care how they divide it up, but as long as it's within the budget that we gave them, that is what we should look at. Okay?
Speaker,
Yes, Chairman Romulo?
thank you. I also want to register my concern with this bill. Who are those that will be eligible under this? Because I understand there were some other delegates who sit in as proxy during the convention, the pre-con, where they have been two selected from each state. So I wonder if the proxy could also get compensated, where as like the other two selected members.
Well, as long as the proxy sits in and was doing part of responsibility of the as a pre-con member, why should it be different? I mean, if
Well-
you're concerned about the budget, as I mentioned, if
Well,
funding
because
should go with
there in the bill, the law, there was not any proxy mentioned that they can be proxying or who's authorizing a delegate to sit in when president has selected that the individuals who will be member of the pre-con.
Thank you, Chairman Romulo. I'm sure we understand that. Maybe their legal counsel will issue an opinion whether those proxies are entitled
Speaker.
to anything.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, Senator Christian, we're
what
in
happened to
session.
the clock?
Short recess subject to call of the chair.
rule change for.
We're still discussing 21-151. Any
Speaker.
further discussion? Yes, Floor Leader Harbor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to state for the record that I personally support on the amendments by the proposed by the convention. The only question I have in mind is why is that the pre-convention didn't include their compensation in the first place? And for the extension of days, I do agree with that because I don't want them to tell the people that they failed their work because we, didn't give them the number of days. So they may say that we are the cause of their failure in their work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Floor Leader Harbor. Any other discussion?
Speaker,
None?
I want the record to reflect that I don't agree with the extension. We had done it once. We gave them the number of days to complete the work, just like the one before this one, the third one, and they did the work. And because the justification was, I thought, maybe enough to give them that extension, we did. And now if they're talking about extension, my vote is no, and I have problem supporting this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Ursuman. I'm sure you will propose an amendment to this on second and final reading to address some of your concerns. Okay. Any other discussion? If none, there's no objection. Discussion is closed. So let's vote by roll call of members.
Senator Ritas, Senator Christian, Senator Figuer,
No.
Senator Coolant, Floor Leader Harper, Floor Leader, clarification, please. Floor Leader, is it no? Yes. Oh. Senator Conman, Vice Speaker Moses, Senator Neth, Senator Pollack, Senator Perman,
Abstain.
Senator Perman, Senator Romulo. Tama vote.
No.
Senator Ursmal, Senator Wally,
No.
Speaker Semina,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker. How come I have only
Short recess subject to call of the chair.
in the gallery today, I wish to rise to a point of privilege to make known a concern of mine that I've had yesterday, and I mentioned a portion of it yesterday, and I apologize in advance if I seem to be overstating this point. On today's order of business, item 5, item 7, item 8, item 9, and item 10. Most of them are none, and one, item 9, agency or governmental authority communications, has one, but it has nothing to do with our current efforts with regards to our preparedness or preparing ourselves for the coronavirus. Today we passed legislation, I believe, that is trying to help out the tourism industry businesses. A couple days ago, or probably a day or two ago, there was a confirmed case in Hawaii, which means that we no longer have United services that are coming to the FSM. And the Marshall Islands also introduced a banning all international travel for the next 14 days. Now, if Guam gets it, that means we will most likely implode. We will not have any access to medical supplies. We will not have access to experts from outside agencies like the World Health Organization, the CDC. We will not get the necessary supplies just to sustain ourselves and the basic necessary sanitary material that we would need in case of an event when it gets here. And there's been talk that if something needs to be changed in the rules, laws, if a resolution needs to be passed, we're just going to call Congress back to session. I believe that would probably be impossible, as we will not have any means to get together aside from the ship, which would take a long time, and during an emergency we would need the ships to come in. And we're going to ban all international travel by our supposedly people with the expertise in these fields. I really see us getting into a problem, and we're not addressing it currently. We're not addressing what we need to do to help ourselves during this time. We're trying to help the businesses. We're trying to appropriate money for the government to use, yet we're not using it. The states are not even informing us of what their plans are. The task force is not informing us. And it shows on today's order of business, where there are no communications from the President's office, no departmental communications, agency communications, none, state communications, none. And this is a real problem for me as a sitting member of Congress. When flights are being canceled out of Honolulu, and when we need urgent medical supplies, we might not be able to get them. And if United decides to cancel all services to the FSM, how long will it take them to reinstate it back so that we may receive the necessary personnel, equipment, medical supplies, and so forth? So that's what I wanted to make my own point, and I'm sorry if I overstated this point yesterday and today, but I have a feeling that we might adjourn early, so I wanted to make the point before we moved on in our order of business. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker Moses. Well said, yes. No, you're not overdoing it. It's actually our responsibility to keep pushing, to keep stressing the very reasons why we are here in special session. And I guess the president's office is adopting the walk the talk instead of talking, communicating. They're just doing things on the ground. I don't know. Maybe that's what's happening. But we know we've done our part. What we're trying to do is do our part as the legislative branch of this government. We should appropriate sufficient funding for their activities. And if worse come to worse, if we have to address the curative or part of it also, then we will definitely find ways to come back to Palicura and have another session to address those as they come around. So thank you, Vice Speaker Moses, for making that important statement. We are now down on the resolution calendar. You want
Point
to
of
say
privilege,
something?
Mr. Speaker.
Short recess, subject to call of the chair. We're back in session. Any volunteer? Okay, next item, Chief Clerk.
Speaker,
Eh,
motion to stand in recess till tomorrow AM.
It's been moved and seconded that Congress stand in recess until tomorrow at 10 in the morning. Those in favor of that motion, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Congress now stands in recess until tomorrow at 10 in the morning.
Can someone call an ambulance?